Excuse the books around me. I never usually keep this many books on the floor. It's just, I just so happened to film a book haul, and then I filmed my, Fairy Loot unboxings. Oh, we're gonna do this. Oh my god. What up, book lovers? It's G here, and I am here today to talk about my year as an author. October 2nd, 2024 was the day I decided that I was no longer going to hold back, that I was going to be an author. And so how did that work out for me? I also definitely saw it as a moment of transformation for me. I mentioned in the video that I announced my rebrand that I was met by the managing director of my company. I swear I make the same mistake in that video as well. When I say my company, I mean the company that I work for. Why would I say the managing director of my company when I could be the managing director of my company? One night we were drinking a drink or two, and I had made a throwaway comment about me being 28 at the time. And we went from joking around to being serious when he said, oh, 28 is an important year. Every 7 years you go through a change cycle, and 28 is the most important one. 28 is when you decide how the rest of your life goes. And I mean, look, some people go through their transformation journeys in different parts of their lives, but I took that very seriously. And that just so happened to be May of last year. For months I was literally trying to search for meaning. I mean, that being said, I was definitely trying to search for meaning within those 2 years alone. Oh my goodness, I went through a season of grief, a massive season of grief. At that point, I thought, oh, well, like I don't know if there's anything else in life for me. I kind of always knew that I wanted to be a storyteller because I've always been passionate about stories and I've always had a big imagination. I have never considered myself to be a great writer. You know, there are limiting beliefs that I have about myself, especially when it comes to like my dyslexia, for example. Sometimes my writing comes out terribly. However, through it all, through all of that experience, I had realized something amazing about myself. That I had a story to tell. That all that grief that I had accumulated within that time did have its meaning. And that night in May of 2024 was the opportunity for me to start thinking at the forefront of my mind, what is it? How am I going to change my life based on this? How am I going to develop myself? And then October 2nd, literally less than a month before I turned 29. I was sobbing, I was in tears. I had a terrible day at my 9 to 5. I got news that I didn't really want to hear, and I was like really upset about it, and I had spent my entire commute just crying. I came back, I walked through the front door, my husband asked me if I was okay. I said to him, this is what happened today. But guess what? I'm an author. I was smiling through my tears. I realized that setback after setback after setback was no longer going to hold me back. Because I decided in that moment to embody the persona of an author. Did I have experience in writing? No. I mean, yes, I've written essays and I've done that kind of stuff within school before. And like 10 years ago, I had a concept for a story of like superheroes and an academy and all that stuff that I really wanted to write, but I never did it. I never did it. I really do miss those characters. Those characters lived in my mind rent-free. There are so many story concepts that I had throughout the years, and I only decided that just before I turned 29, that I was gonna commit to it. Do I have any regrets about not doing it earlier? Yeah, I do. I really do. However, it is so much better than having the regret on my deathbed. I am happy that I at least had that day. It was a painful day. Like right now, it's like starting to come up in my nervous system just remembering that moment. I felt so sad and so defeated in that moment. It was like the darkest moment. If you know about the 27 chapter method by Kat O'Keefe, yeah, it was the darkest moment part of the 27 chapter method. That is how I felt. But I rose above it, and I proved to myself that I truly am an author. I'm not even published yet, but I am so passionate about what I am doing. So passionate to the point that I shared it on this platform. I decided that going forward, I was going to go by my pen name. That going forward, I was going to identify myself as an author first and foremost. And so yeah, here I'm going to talk about my experience of doing that for a year and where it has taken me and where I do want to take it, where I can see myself taking it. I'm just jumping in here real quick before we proceed. I know that I don't really need to justify my personality, but in case you are new to watching, this is why I'm saying this. Within the next segment, let's just say that I was really excited and I was really giddy and I was really proud of myself. And when I do mention a few times that I'm really proud of myself, I genuinely am not trying to come from a cocky place. It's more like I was really just excited to finally get all of this news out about myself. Oh my goodness, this video scared me. But making this video also put me on a high afterwards. And I felt like I was, you know, going through a little bit of a high while I was filming this video, only because, like, finally I was able to express some things about myself that I have not actually completely expressed here on this platform. There's so much that I was living behind the scenes. It just feels great. If I do mention maybe one or two or maybe a few more times that I am proud of myself, it's not coming from a cocky place. Or at least I hope it's not coming off that way. I'm just purely excited, that's all. I wasn't expecting to get emotional at the very beginning of this. I was like really pumped and then all of a sudden I remembered that moment. That was a very life-defining moment for me. You know what? At the back of my mind, I feel like maybe I thought about this too late, but then I think about those who came before me. An author who I find to be an inspiration personally, T.L. Swan. She started at the age of 41. It's never too late. Now she's a best-selling author, has a massive backlist, doing incredible things, touring the world, starting a publishing company. All of this after bankruptcy. Her story really inspired me to pick myself up. Yeah, if I keep talking about it, I'm gonna get emotional. Here I am, a year later. I definitely feel like I'm a changed person, and for the better. I feel so much more positive. I feel so much more light. I feel so much more happy. I know I'm exposed by the things that scare me every single day, and that is like self-expression. Looking at my words, I'm like, oh my goodness, they look so ugly. But I'm actually doing it. This is so random. Okay, before I start with my review, the other day I was having a pretty low day, and I was watching a positive video because I like to do that. I like to watch positive content in order to uplift myself. And I saw in the comments, it's a very common saying, but it's a saying that never really clicked in here for the longest time. From what I can recall, the saying goes, believing in yourself is half the battle, right? An hour later, I was like, okay, no, I'm just gonna take a break. I'm not gonna burn myself out. I'm not gonna overextend myself to try to push the words out. I'm just gonna take a break. And I am watching Poker Face, a very random show, and that saying pops up on a random poster in the baseball episode. If anybody has watched the baseball episode of season 2, there's a random poster in that office that says the exact same quote. And I just knew it was divine alignment. And so yeah, I'm going into this video with that mentality today. Believing in yourself is half the battle, and that's what I've done this year. I might have not published, but I've believed in myself enough to the point that I know that I am an author and I know that I'm capable of great things. Sorry, if you're hearing construction noises, there's construction going outside, and I think a few levels above me, there's some drilling. So I have notes over here. This is actually the second time that I'm attempting to film this video because, yeah, the first time it was not scripted and I was not coherent, and I think if I'm going to be talking about my projects, I need to share very important things about them in order to make them make sense. The first point I wrote here is addressing the lack of writing content for me. Okay, so I have been writing every single day. I've been treating myself as an author every single day. But when it comes to my YouTube channel, my booktube channel, I feel like posting booktube content and working on booktube content on the side helps me relieve myself from burnout. Because if I'm telling my brain that I'm focusing my energy on something that is a hobby rather than like the actual project itself, it actually does work. And I'm getting content out there. I'm putting my name out there whilst I'm doing so. I mean, I'm collecting all these special edition books. I just figured, okay, well, I would like to share that with people. You know, like, what's the point of collecting these books if I cannot show them? No, I'm joking. I like collecting these books because I like collecting books, but also I like to support authors and businesses as well. My channel is a great outlet for that, and it has been for some time. Before, it was more book reviewing and me sharing my thoughts on books. I still like the idea of that. However, I'm focusing a lot more on my creative projects like writing. And I would like to make more writing videos, but then, you know, sometimes I choke up at the idea. I actually have filmed around 4, maybe 5 Authortube videos and they just have not been posted, and I think it might be because I am learning so much more, because honestly I wasn't an author over a year ago. I wasn't. So me giving author advice to those who are new to writing, I feel like I needed to be further in the journey in order to post those videos, because some of those videos I would say things and then later on I wouldn't take my own advice. You know, I feel like you have to do a few cycles as an author before you can fully understand everything that it entails. And so I still classify myself as a new author, considering that I am not yet published and there are so many levels that I have not surpassed yet. However, I do feel like I am at the stage where I am finally comfortable to share and express my journey on here. I did that with a 3-day 30K, and I plan to do it again with the next 3-day 30K. I definitely want to make more 3-day 30K related vlogs. I definitely want to look at making other kinds of content. I just don't necessarily know what works well. Authortube viewers, I am begging you for help here. Please let me know what you want to see, because sometimes I'm like, maybe that's too boring. Maybe that's too fun. I don't know. Like, I really want to express myself, but at the same time, I get carried away and I'm like, well, I may as well just film an unboxing video right now instead. And then I might post an unboxing video right now instead, because that's the mindset, the habits that I've gotten into, and that's what I think that everybody wants to see. And of course, I know that the booktube side definitely wants to see that, but when it comes to the authortube side, I want to know what videos people really want to see. What do they want to know about my projects? And I am excited to share more about my projects as I go along in this video for sure, because I feel like it's overdue at this point that I share a bit more. I did share snippets in my 3-day 30K. I really enjoyed that, and I think that as I go along with my main series, that's not even my main series that I was working on. That was a vampire standalone that's set within the same world. We're getting to that, but when it comes to my main series, I do want to share a little bit more. I think at first I was a little bit self-conscious about sharing that, because the last thing I want is for people to steal my concept. But then when I really think about it, this concept has been done many times. So many people are releasing Sleeping Beauty reimagining books these days that I realize, you know what, as long as I don't share every little detail, I can still share the gist. And if I feel personally attacked because someone else wrote a Sleeping Beauty reimagining that also like focuses on the dream realm and other subconscious things and stuff, then like, you know, it's not on me. It's not an original concept anyway, okay? So I should stop caring. I think at first I just cared way too much about sharing that kind of stuff because I didn't want anyone to steal it, but I'm at a place where, you know what, I'm feeling fine about it.
The most ironic thing about this is that today, as I'm filming this, Read with Cindy has posted their new book announcement talking about a Sleeping Beauty reimagining that just so happens to also be within the dream realm. At first, I think I got a little bit nervous when I saw the title, because anything to do with Briar Rose obviously has to do with Sleeping Beauty. However, I say it's growth because, as I did mention in this video, I do not feel personally attacked at all. It's a very universal idea, and I am also quite relieved that even though both of our stories that so happen to be Sleeping Beauty reimaginings, they are vastly different. Oh, thank goodness.
I'm gonna look for more opportunities to write more, use write-a-thons, and to document more going forward. Okay, how I've changed over the last year, certainly within mindset and self-concept. Something that I had mentioned, thankfully it's over here, something that I had mentioned during my 3-day 30K vlog that I have been doing, and a practice that I've been implementing every day, is writing down I am affirmations for the last few months, and that has really helped me with my self-concept and how I go throughout my day-to-day. Now, in case you don't happen to know and you're new to my channel, I have a 9-to-5. I actually work in publishing. You know, that's something that I had once been passionate about, and you know, it was definitely a manifestation of my former self. But yeah, you know, there are times where my mind is like taken elsewhere. It's a challenge to balance everything out. Some people ask me, how do I do it? How am I a content creator? How am I working in publishing? And how am I writing at the same time and stuff? And I think it just comes down to learning how to let go and detach from all outcomes. I think that detachment has been important, but in the midst of detachment, you have to be confident in yourself. You have to learn how to trust yourself. You need to find habits where you can create self-trust. And so me doing this at least twice a day, filling out 1 page each time, definitely helped for sure. It has definitely boosted my self-esteem. Got to a point where everybody at work was like, oh my goodness, you're so different. Because when it came to me beforehand, going through my season of Lost, I was the most negative person. I was the biggest negative Nancy there was. Me stepping into my author persona, I have no choice but to work on my self-concept. I have no choice but to believe in myself. The best way to do that is to work on the cause before the effect happens. So that's what I've been doing, and it has helped me so much. And I think that challenging myself and embodying what it is like to be an author has changed me dramatically. Even though I have not actually seen my author career materialize on the external, right? I know that I've changed on the inside. In terms of this year, I would definitely have to say it is truly one of the best years that I've ever had in my entire life, if not the best year. But anyway, now we've got to move on to the projects. Or is there anything else that I have to mention in terms of how I've changed? Yes, how I use my emotions. If you guys don't happen to know, I'm a Lebanese Australian. Every once in a while, I do mention my Lebanese heritage. But I come from a culture that is often stereotyped as one that is unhinged by the public.
Mate, don't say that, because that irritates me, and I punch blokes in the mouth for saying that.
And in terms of my family, yeah, I would definitely have to say that my family and my background aren't really any different. You know, they're not beating the allegations. So I definitely came from a background where it was really difficult to get a handle on my emotions until I started to separate myself from that background, whilst also actively choosing to work on myself outside of that. I used to use the fact that I was a Lebanese woman as an excuse to crash out all the time. To say like, you know, this is just how I am. And that just so happens to be a big thing that some of my family members, my neighbors, the Lebs that I've met in Western Sydney, they tend to use that as an excuse. It's just who I am. I get worked up and stuff.
I'm just coming in here to say that I have no intention of generalizing my community. I do not want to put everybody under that stereotype. And based on my experience growing up Lebanese Australian, I understand the collective generational trauma that being of Arab, Middle Eastern heritage comes with.
And look, I have come to discover that even in this last month, anger is such a gift. It really is. I know that sounds ironic, but hear me out. Anger is such a gift because without anger, what kind of art would we have? What kind of authenticity would we have? What kind of stories would we have? If anger cannot be provoked out of a reader, even through history, right? How would have we, as a society, found change? This last year, I got really angry. But the difference between my anger this year and the years that came before it is that I knew that anger was my key. That anger was a gift and a driving force in helping me materialize my story. Something that has definitely changed over this last year is how I handle my emotions and how I now see my emotions as a blessing, how I see my background as a blessing, for sure. And it has helped me feel less triggered. Like, I mean, yeah, sure, maybe there are moments where I'm thinking, I need to get angry in order to write this passage better, right? But when I'm feeling happy, I go to a point of my story where happiness is required and stuff. And sometimes, yeah, you know, I do need to wait it out in order to get to the really important moments, but oh my goodness, when I get there, I'm so proud of myself. And I've showed up so much better in my personal life. I've maintained positivity in every other area of my life, but when I get angry, oh, I know that when I get angry, I'm like, ooh, the inspiration is coming. I need to let this anger out. If I cannot let that anger out to write at the time, what I do is I do my I am affirmations in order to charge me up. Definitely something that has helped for sure. Anyway, now we're finally gonna talk about my projects. Within this year, I have worked on 3 projects. Technically, 2 out of the 3 projects are part of the same series. In fact, that series is a trilogy, or at least it's a planned trilogy with a prequel and 3 direct spin-offs planned. Yeah, I know. But I cannot work on those 3 direct spin-offs until I finish this trilogy. And thank goodness I am passionate about this trilogy, right? Because if I was not passionate about this trilogy, if I lost all hope and I gave up on this trilogy, I don't know what I would do. But essentially, this story idea actually came to me soon after I had that conversation with my managing director in May of 2024, and before I realized that I was an author in October. It actually happened, I want to say June of 2024. I think that I was working out in the gym June 2024, and then all of a sudden this idea came to me.
And if anybody thinks about stealing this idea, well, I was 2 steps ahead. First and foremost, I not only decided to film this video and post it, making this a specific timestamp, but I, around a year ago, or I'd like to say like around when I was working on my first draft, I was taught a specific way to make sure that I am keeping receipts of when certain things are published, meaning that I have some unopened drafts that I have specific timestamps for when they were last saved. So don't worry guys, I'm not that paranoid. Yeah, don't take this as a threat, but if the shoe fits, you can wear it, Cinderella.
So I have read a few Sleeping Beauty reimaginings. I like the idea of Sleeping Beauty reimaginings. Sleeping Beauty has never been my favorite fairy tale. My favorite fairy tale has always been Beauty and the Beast. So I thought that Beauty and the Beast was going to be the first fairy tale that I would reimagine. However, I became so fascinated in this concept where essentially we are following a female protagonist who has been captured by who is meant to be the villain of the Sleeping Beauty story. The story really started to develop more in the second draft more than anything. Oh my goodness. So I like to say to people that it is a Sleeping Beauty reimagining where she falls in love with the villain. But if anybody wants to know more about it and where the root of the inspiration is, it takes its inspiration from my racial experience as well as my experience growing up in religion. The human kingdom that we're dealing with here are a very, let's say, religious kingdom. Not necessarily religious, like the king is not a priest. However, strong association with the priest. The king being Princess Sidonia's father. Princess Sidonia just so happens to be the female protagonist. The dude is essentially he's against magical deviance of any kind. He will go lengths to use alchemy and say that alchemy is cool and stuff because he wants to cleanse the nation, maybe even the world, of magic, but like he will not stand for magic, right? So Sidonia, my female protagonist, has been conditioned to believe that magic is evil and that fae kind, that vampire kind, that all sorts of like orc kind, any sort of magical deviant in this world is perceived as evil, but her entire life she's spent in this castle. Let's say that one night everything flips upside down. A mysterious fae comes who just so happens to be my favorite male character I've ever written, Hesperos. He is my baby. He is my baby. I truly believe that I manifested him into a kind of Love and Deep Space form. Okay, if anybody here plays Love and Deep Space, I actually don't play Love and Deep Space, but I keep up with the arcs through Twitter and stuff. I came up with the concept of this main male character being a dragon shifter fae. And I know some of you guys know where this is going, yes. So when I just so happened to see Silas's myth for the first time on my feed, I was like, oh my goodness. If you guys don't happen to know, okay, if you guys do not keep up with Love and Deep Space, shout out to my husband, he bought this for me at Comic-Con on the weekend. Look at him, he's adorable. I mean, Hesperos obviously has different features, different like color aesthetics and stuff, but I mean, oh my goodness. Like parts of this is how I envisioned Hesperos in my mind, and then I see Silas from Love and Deep Space, I'm like, oh my goodness, did I actually manifest? But no, not entirely the same. I mean, I've personally actually not dived too deep into the backstory of Silas from Love and Deep Space, only because I personally do not want to subconsciously take anything, but whenever I see this version, this is my favorite version of him. I think it's because he just reminds me of Hesperos so much. And then you guys might be wondering, okay, so gee, who's the Prince Charming in this universe? So the Prince Charming in this universe just so happens to be a king from another kingdom who just so happens to be part of a kingdom that has also banned magic. So I should have probably specified this from the beginning. Even a year later, I'm not 100% sure if the names for the nations are final, but this is just what I'm going to say to explain to you guys how this story works. So Princess Sidonia and King Alaric, her father, they're from the kingdom of Oakencrest. Oakencrest being a nation that despises magical deviants and has banned magic altogether. The kingdom of Oronel is a kingdom that King Alaric is looking to make an alliance with that has also banned magic based on King Cyrus the First, who had tragically passed in the Fae and Human War that takes place, like, I'm trying to remember as I'm talking about this. Well, it took place before Sidonia was born, so like maybe 24, 25 years at this point.
I should have probably specified that King Alaric of Oakencrest and King Cyrus the First of Oronel, they had an alliance whilst the Fae and Human War was happening.
So the alliance was lost because the king was dead and his only successor just so happened to be a child, and the advisor and the kingdom were like, sorry, we're not making alliances right now, we are trying to rebuild, right? But King Cyrus Jr. just so happens to be the biggest man-child. He grew up king, grew up very entitled, and he thinks that he deserves everything and stuff. He's essentially an F-boy, and he's very negligent when it comes to his nation. But after all this time, he realizes that he needs the help of King Alaric more than ever, because let's just say, him being a massive man-child also means he does not know how to save and budget, and as a result, his kingdom, his territories are going under. There just so happen to be a lot of citizens in Oronel who live in poverty. Do not forget that point. We will bring that up later with another project that I've been working on this year. And so King Cyrus Jr. decides, okay, I'm gonna take the bait. I wasn't wanting to commit to marriage anyway, but I mean, she might be like a good little girl toy and stuff. He's essentially really misogynistic. So obviously, it's not gonna be a love triangle. Sorry, I have to keep stopping and starting. My camera keeps on moving. Oh my goodness. I had to keep stopping and starting because vacuuming in my hallway. Anyway, I think I was talking about King Cyrus Jr. Yes. He is a result of what it is like to be spoiled and entitled within privilege. And then you have Princess Sidonia, who was never really spoiled or entitled because she was always put down and reduced to almost nothing by her father. She would consistently just stay in her lane. Her nervous system is like completely off and stuff, so she tends to have like a lot of nightmares, a lot of fear, and fear also definitely does play part in the story as we keep going along, because we've got Hesperos, who's very much a nightmare, and I like to call her, you know, my dream. The arc that I have planned for Sidonia is an incredible one. As someone who had the worst kind of nervous system growing up as a result of different types of traumas, I decided that I was going to put my experience into her as a character. Also, as someone who was like homeschooled, was very much sheltered from what was going on the outside, and then coming to realize what I truly believed, that was the kind of arc I wanted to give Sidonia, but through a fantasy form. And obviously her experience, her story is definitely not as extreme as mine.
What is wrong with my articulation here? I meant that my experience is definitely not as extreme as hers. Oh my goodness.
But all that pain of my inner child, I was able to pour out into her. And then when it comes to Hesperos,
for some reason I neglected to mention that Hesperos is from the kingdom of Ebonhollow, where magic thrives, and they are a rival to Oakencrest. And of course, another thing I neglected to mention, because I'm so focused on explaining these characters rather than the plot, Oronel / King Cyrus Jr. has gotten to a point where he is very dependent on an alliance with Oakencrest. But Oakencrest is very dependent on an alliance with Oronel, as they had previously, because when the Fae and Human War happened back 25 years ago, those kingdoms were allied trying to take down Ebonhollow, or at least they were going at each other because of an immigration crisis that happened years ago, which isn't really discussed earlier on in the piece. It's discussed later, but essentially Oakencrest, King Alaric, he wants to become more powerful, so he feels like, okay, if I can ally with the kingdom of Oronel like I did back in the day, I will become even more powerful. So it gets to the point where he's like, oh yeah, you know, I am going to prey on the vulnerability of Oronel, and I'm also going to prey on the vulnerability of my daughter, my only heir. And I don't care if she's my only heir. In fact, I don't really care about her at all. Yeah, King Alaric is very despicable, and you actually get that from the beginning of the book. Even though Princess Sidonia would do anything to impress him. So the motive of Hesperos being that he is from an enemy kingdom, who knows? Maybe he's trying to stop an alliance from happening? Maybe to potentially stop a wedding from happening?
He is misunderstood, he's had like a tragic backstory, he's had tragic things happen to him, but you know how I had mentioned all the grief that I was experiencing within those few years, all that kind of grief and the way that I had justified certain impulses and actions, I had put that into Hesperos. I had made him impulsive. The first time, however, okay, so let's talk about first draft. So the first 3 months of my author career, I had worked on the first draft of this book, but my character motivations were not 100% there. I can sit here now a year later and know that my character motivations are much different from where they were before. So with Sidonia, I thought, okay, well maybe she would say to herself, well, if evil, then why sexy, right? And she would have no backbone and she would choose Hesperos immediately. She'd be like, you know what? I'm just gonna fall for you. I'm just gonna let you do all your little nightmare things on me and we'll call it a day, right? I did not give her a backbone. And as someone who grew up with some sort of religious conviction based on what I was taught growing up, not completely believing in everything that everybody was saying or inputting into me at the time, like I didn't have my own personality at the time, we essentially have that here with Sidonia's character. I mean, yes, it is a Sleeping Beauty reimagining in the literal sense, like yes, Sidonia is gonna be in a sleeping state at some point of the story, but it's also one in a metaphorical and mental sense as well for the protagonist. She is waking up to eventually see the horrors that be on the outside of the world. She could never see that in the confines of her safe castle. This story is also about how the subconscious keeps us safe. It keeps us safe thinking that it's protecting us from harm every single time we take risks and we stand up for what's right and we do what's right for ourselves. This was also a story that me actually stepping out of my comfort zone of being an author and stuff, like it's something that I could channel that into as well, because I'm doing something that's really scary. I'm talking about my projects on here. I'm doing this. I'm doing something that I've never done before, and my brain would usually say, gee, stop. You need to go back to what you were doing. You go back to your normal. You just like don't even try. Don't even do it anymore, right? That is how our subconscious tries to protect us, because our subconscious is wired for survival. And so that is the kind of story that I wanted to put through Sidonia. Her going out of her comfort zone and being like, no, like I do not want to accept that my father is evil. I don't want to accept that my father did not have my best interests at heart. I don't want to accept that. And that is only the tip of the iceberg.
And of course, when it comes to Sleeping Beauty reimaginings, I know I touched upon what was happening in the waking world. What is happening in the waking world very much sets a good foundation for the Sleeping Beauty story, but essentially the dream realm aspect of it is when we are introduced to our character who puts Sidonia into that state.
Book 2? Oh my god, I'm so excited for book 2. I'm really excited for book 2 because she learns how to shine. The first book is breaking her down and realizing that there are so many things that are going on. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm just going to say the end of book 1, she has a choice whether she is going to rise and be stronger than how she was raised, because she was raised to feel weak. She was raised to be weak, right? She is stronger than she knows, though. Oh, I'm so excited. I am so excited. I love this story because of how much it truly means to me. I love the story because I love these characters. These characters definitely speak to my inner child. But then also there's Winston the Otter, and I love Winston the Otter.
Everywhere I go, I keep a picture in my wallet like you. Take a look at my girlfriend.
I feel like in my first draft, I gave Winston the Otter all the fun scenes, and with Hesperos and Sidonia in the first draft, so I made Sidonia have no backbone, and I made Hesperos too nice. I made Hesperos too, like, understanding. It was so bad. It was so bad. What did I put in my notes for second draft Hesperos? Oh my goodness, second draft Hesperos, I made dark. And I'm so happy I made dark because, as I mentioned, Hesperos was a way for me to channel all the grief, all the loss that I had experienced within the 2 years prior to me starting to write. The consistent need I had to control every single situation. The consistent need I had to possess my destiny, right? That's what I put into Hesperos. That technically made him a little bit possessive, you know, in the way that people would like a male main character to be possessive. But then there's just so much to his backstory that definitely makes him the way that he is. Trying my best not to spoil. Okay, so being that I'm really passionate about this project, where did I stop? And why did I stop? I stopped when I was participating in my first 3-day 30k challenge with A.K. Mulford's writing group. Now, the 3-day 30k challenge was something that I was introduced to very recently. This was also at a time where I felt like whenever I was making progress with my novel, I was making really slow progress. Because bear in mind, there's the 9-to-5 gig that's going on. There's just so much that's happening in my life. And at the time, there was a lot happening in my life. I think Babe was coming up. I just wasn't finding inspiration for writing, but I also wasn't really good at digital detoxing back then. Now, these days, I know to use color filters on my phone, to put my phone on Do Not Disturb, all that stuff, etc. I'm so much better with that kind of stuff now than I was before, for sure. But when it came to this project, I was starting to get so many revelations within my second draft. In fact, my second draft wasn't even my second draft. My second draft just so happened to be a rewrite of the first draft. And that's purely because I did not know how to outline within my first draft. My first draft was not a story I was proud of. Like, I was having fun writing it. Oh, I was having fun writing it, especially with characters like, so I have a side character named Raphael who's very sassy. Hesperos gets very sassy as well, but they have like 2 different sassy humors. And then you have Winston, who's just really fun to write about. This story was just very fun to write about, but I felt like I was losing my purpose in writing it the first 3 months that I was writing it. I got so much more serious when I truly discovered just how dark Hesperos could be and just how angry and furious Sidonia could be. That was incredible. I came up with some incredible ideas, but then some of those incredible ideas came in the middle of my story, like realizing that I needed to include interludes in my story, realizing that Hesperos has had certain other things happen to him in the story, realizing that certain events happened before the events that I wrote that need to be implemented in the story, realizing that Hesperos had a pet raven named Dio. Dio came into the story months into my rewrite. I still have not gone back into the first half of my novel to add Dio. But Dio has always been there. He was just found later.
A clown? He's a clown? Why didn't I see it before?
And Dio has a very fun rivalry with Winston. He's jealous of Winston and how much attention Winston gets because Winston is so cute. Winston is an otter, right? He's a very playful otter, and Dio hates that. And it's so funny. Oh, I love Winston and Dio so much. I love the comedic relief that these pet companions bring to my story. But Dio wasn't part of my story until 8 months into working on this project. Honestly, incorporating Dio really helped improve certain like plot holes for sure. I definitely needed some sort of companion character to be there, and I felt like Dio was a perfect call. And to top it all off, he is a great reference to the original Sleeping Beauty story, where we have a raven named Diablo. Yes, I named him Dio. I didn't just name him Dio because of the polarity between the two, okay? I named him Dio because I also really like Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So like, I felt like I had to pay homage to Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure as well. I don't know, it was perfect. I just felt like it was the perfect opportunity that presented itself. So I called the raven Dio, okay? But all of these revelations would come so much further into my rewrite. And then it got to the point where when I was rewriting, there would be days that I would take off from my project, and then I would come back, and then I would start working on part 4, and then go on. And then go back to the beginning of part 4, and then continue to go on. Oh, no, I need to add this to this act as well. No, I need to add this to the middle as well. No, I need to add this to the middle as well. It became a repetitive cycle where I was consistently working on the final part of my book. I initially thought that the middle part of my book, you know, would have cottagecore vibes, right? No, all of a sudden I realized, this isn't Gothic enough. Like, I want this to be creepy and eerie, like, a little bit more. So instead of a cottage, let's do like an abandoned manor, an abandoned castle, whatnot. Like, I just want that kind of aesthetic. But I only decided that 8-9 months into the novel. And I didn't even realize that at the time I was craving the idea of writing a Gothic romance. I mean, I really wanted to make this book a little bit more Gothic, but it's quite epic in scope as well. I'm putting a lot of pressure on myself, I know. And that's why I need to work with an external team to at least help me navigate how I can balance out these tones eventually. That is me talking about my struggles there. But the 3-day 30K challenge, I told myself, okay, well, I am going to fill in the blanks in this novel, in this 3-day 30K. And the scenes were coming out terribly. I realized that within some of the middle parts of my first book, and see, this first book is so important to get right, but also to be a book where we meet the protagonist, we see her development, and then we see like the side characters that both sides have kind of like come to know and how they navigate going forward. The character interactions were just not doing it for me. And I had realized that I got to the point where I felt like I ruined my book. It was a devastating moment. I cried. I was like, oh my goodness. I think this is the time. I think I meant to put this book down and take a break. I was sad about that because over the last year, Hesperus and Sidonia have become my best friends. And so has Angelica, so has Raphael, so has Morgana and Zakari. They became my best friends. Winston, Dio, they became my best friends. I was so sad to see them go. I had to do this because I think I had realized that at that point I had burnt myself out. So that was book 1 that I worked on. Book 2 that I worked on actually was between that time, between the first draft and the rewrite of the first draft. I was working on the prequel to that series. I'm so excited for this prequel, but this prequel will spoil book 2.
So basically the prequel is designed to be read between books 2 and 3. It is still a prequel that takes place around 25 years before the series. It actually takes place during the war, or like somewhere around that, because obviously there's going to be some sort of like passage of time within that period, but we are following a character that gets introduced in book 2, and it spoils a massive plot twist that happens at the end of book 2. So the prequel needs to be read between books 2 and 3.
And it's meant to transition into the prologue of book 1. Yes, indeed, the prologue that I wrote on October 2nd. I spent around 20 days in January working on this project. I wanted this to be a first draft that I would spend only 1 month working on. And I could not get through it. I got around halfway through it, but it was a grueling process. And a big reason why it was a grueling process is because it's a tragic story. It really is a tragic story. I just wasn't in the mood to write it. Like, I think that summertime in January is not the time to write such a grueling story. Summertime in Australia, I'm talking about. So, it just was not the right place, right time. And I remember also getting wise words from Abby in the group chat where she had said, maybe you also just have not adjusted to the character voice. Because at the end of December, I jumped from Sidonia's voice all the way to the voice of my main character in this novel. Or novella, rather. And I thought, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I am planning to work on that project eventually, but I also feel like I will be even more passionate to work on that project now that I know so much more about book 1. Like, I wasn't going through my rewrites back then, and now I know so much more about book 1 that I feel like I can go into this prequel with confidence eventually. But yes, it's a pretty tough one to get through, but it's a very essential story. It's a story that is met with hope later. It doesn't necessarily have a happily ever after. Well, I mean, it does have maybe a happily ever after if you get to the end of my series. But it sets up the entire series, but also the intention for the end game. There's literally a point of the story where something needs to lock into place. The main character of this novella needs to make one of the hardest decisions, in fact, the hardest decision of their life, in order to save the world.
Well, when I say the world, I mean the kingdoms that are involved in the series.
The world saving is essentially going to be happening like, what, 25 years later. But it's worth it in the end. I also did not know how to outline at that time. I was not familiar with outlining at the time. I did like write, you know, an outline, but the 27 chapter method would have helped me then. It would have saved me so much time. With my first book, it really would have saved me so much time. After I got burnt out on my first book, and after 2 projects that have not yet been completed, I decided, okay, you know what? I love this world. I love the spin-offs that I'm planning to work on eventually. The 3 spin-offs that I'm planning to work on eventually from my main series, those cannot be worked on until the main series is finished. I need the main events to be in place and confirmed before I can work on those. Okay, so what am I doing now? Maybe a standalone project, I don't know. And so like I was brainstorming, and then all of a sudden a concept came to me for a vampire romance standalone that is set within the same world. And then all of these different videos came to me at once. I found this video, I reference it in my 3-day 30K challenge, the video on the screen here. I found that as I was looking up how to outline a book, because I was so sick and tired of just like trying to beat a dead horse. I mean, it's not necessarily a dead horse, but it was just, I needed to take a break, and I wanted to work on something new. I did not want to limit myself to this project if I was consistently within the headspace of like going again and again and again trying to make passages perfect. Consistently repeating some middle chapters. So, a vampire romance standalone set within the same world as my main series, but in a different territory where magic just so happens to thrive, but as a result of the ban of magic that is in place within Oakencrest and Oronel, that I had previously mentioned. Within this territory, Evermere, unfortunately, they have legalized very shady things when it comes to those territories, like exports from those territories as revenge. So trafficking is legal as long as the victim is from that territory. And so yeah, that is kind of a little sad plot point that we got going on. I definitely took inspiration from some of the orc romances that I've read, like from Zoe Ashwood. The Black Bear Clan, yes, the Black Bear Clan. Reading that first one, we follow a girl that's sold into slavery and stuff, and I've always kind of wanted to look at a concept like that, but see how that would work in a world that I've already developed. And you know what? It ended up turning out pretty well. So we follow Paloma, who is from the nation of Oronel. She is on the Gulf though, and she unfortunately is a victim of the territory's poverty. Thanks a lot, King Cyrus. So basically she's purchased and couriered off on the way to her owner by slave traders, and she is called and abandoned for some time. She feels alone, she feels very betrayed by her family. Her living mother and brother abandoned her. They had sold her off because they thought, okay, well, there's no promise for anyone here. There's not even promise, even though she was trying so hard to provide for her family, hunting for food, but also she was applying to work at the capital, because the capital, being where King Cyrus is where all the opportunity seems to come from, right? Everybody in that territory seems to care about the capital. Even the king only really seems to care about the capital. He's not really caring about what's happening on the outside, not even at the Gulf. Paloma has been abandoned, and she struggles with abandonment issues. She struggles with trust issues. So she's being couriered off to her owner, and before she can even reach her owner, all of a sudden, this grumpy vampire dude who is out with a vengeance because these traders went through what's technically his property. He
Unalive.
the traders. He feeds on them. He was going out for feed. He was just going out for feed, and he is so intrigued by Paloma. He was so intrigued by her. So Verlac, I love Verlac. I'm still technically trying to work out him completely, but oh my goodness, like he's got tragic backstory too. I love giving my boys sad tragic backstory. But I also love making my boys stronger from that as well. And I love making my female protagonists stronger from that. The difference between Sidonia and Paloma is that Sidonia is the type of character who has been privileged, but she has been sheltered her entire life, whereas Paloma has given her all to sacrifice herself, to work hard, and to keep her family afloat, as they're this close to going homeless, you know? There are moments where she's just like, I feel useless in this territory, I don't know what to do. At the same time, she's very spunky, and she's just like, oh, you know, like I'm scared of this vampire, but then also as she comes into her own, she starts to wonder, like, how am I even useless to this vampire? He's not even my owner. Then Verlac is like so persistent in saying, oh yeah, but you're mine. And then we have Hector the house spirit, who just makes things so much funnier and stuff. And like, I love just writing about characters, female characters, where like they've gone through stuff, because we all go through stuff. But I love the idea of writing stories where there is a pure light at the end of the tunnel, where you don't see it at first, but it's there. It's there and it's waiting for you. And so for the last 2 months, well, 3 months really, I spent a month outlining this book. I refused to write anything else. I decided that for an entire month, I was going to dedicate myself to listening to Mozart, to create Pinterest boards, to outline every single thing I could think of when it came to this book, doing the 27 chapter method.
And of course, I forgot to mention that the 2 months after that 1 month of outlining, I've spent writing this book.
Now, was it perfect? Has it come out perfect? No, it has not come out perfect. However, I know my character's motivations. I do. There are things that are coming out of the woodwork very randomly, but I know my character's motivations. I know the purpose of the story. At first, I was trying to find the purpose of my Sleeping Beauty story. And if there is a message that I have from my Sleeping Beauty story, the main message that I intend for that series is kindness. I do take a pretty like anti-war approach as well. Honestly, when it comes to that series, it all really comes down to the kindness and treating others, treating other kinds with respect. And if you mess with the livelihoods and the life forces of anyone in this world, then you'll get what's coming to you. There's some comeuppance in that series, that's for sure. Essentially, when it comes to my fictional world, everything is about balance, right? And that series is about balance and the polarity of light and dark, and how both can be used as forces to defeat the true evil. Like, there's true evil that could be underneath what looks pure. Both the evil and good sides have the polarity of light and darkness. So when it came to that series, that was the main objective that I had, but not from the very beginning. That was an objective that developed over time. The main objective with the Vampire Romance Standalone, however, was that love conquered all. And I mean, you could argue that it's a similar concept, you know, but when it comes to this one, it was plain and simple. Love conquered all. Love conquered abandonment issues. Love conquered trust issues. Love conquers fear. It's just a very beautiful story. I don't want to spoil what goes on, and I've loved working on this book. I loved working on this first draft. But then there was a point where the world essentially, I just started feeling angry. I mean, anger's a gift, right? Anger's good. Anger's really good. And they always tell you to take a walk, and taking a walk is the best thing that you could do, honestly. Taking walks is where I get my best kind of inspiration. But I've noticed that every single time I take a walk, I'm thinking about Hesperus and Sidonia. I'm not thinking about Verlac and Paloma. I have not worked on Hesperus and Sidonia's story for 3 months as I'm filming this video right now. You would probably think that I've been working on their story for like these last few months. No, they're just at the forefront of my mind. They are. I miss them. I miss them a lot. And so I thought that my next project, yes, now we're leading into my next project. I thought that my next project with the 3-day 30K was going to be my next Vampire Romance Standalone. And it might be. Who knows? I might change my mind when I switch this camera off and when I get to that eventually. But I'm thinking that I might just work on my first draft of book 2 in the hopes that it will give me a clear mind of how to tackle book 1 again. I know what I want to happen in book 2 for the most part, but this time I'm going to use the 27 chapter method, and I am going to outline this book so much better than I did the first book, for sure. Now, when it comes to my Vampire Romance Standalone, I think I am going to finish the first draft around the 320 page mark. See, when it came to the first draft of book 1 for Sleeping Beauty, it was 500 pages. I mean, the font was big, and I did write in Comic Sans MS to start off with, but oh boy. But my rewrites are currently sitting at like 550 pages. It's not done, by the way. Not done. Like, I still have missing scenes in it. 550 pages, 220,000 plus words. And that's just book 1. That's book 1. Before things get epic! Before things get epic.
And mind you, with all of that, I went from a size 12 font to a size 10. I think that size 11 is probably logical. But like, I'm looking at my my manuscript, and I'm having to decrease my font size in order to justify just how many words are being written into this one manuscript.
So I'm anticipating book 2 is also going to be really long. Who knows, it might take 2 write-a-thons to get through. You know, this series is much more epic in scope. It's not as simple as like one like small little romance concept that we've got going on, where yes, like, you know, with my vampire romance there was high stakes, but the government wasn't necessarily completely involved. I mean, yes, the vampire that we're following, Verlac, is a count, but he's not a king. His function in society is not to serve a nation, it's to serve a county. So when it comes to the Sleeping Beauty series, like, there's so many stakes, so many plot points and intricacies and romantic tense scenes, all that stuff, etc. There's a lot to it. But I miss it. I really miss it. You guys don't even know. Like, this is the first time I'm actually like openly talking about this project on my channel. I have attempted to talk about this a few times, like through filming, and I've decided no, like that wasn't gonna cut it. Now I feel confident enough to say, whenever I talk about my magnum opus series, this is my magnum opus series, this is what I've been working on, this is my labor of love, I'm really passionate about it. I intend book 2 to be very epic, right? My writing obviously is not out there at this point, but I at least believe in myself to make it happen that way. When we ask what's next, I think it's gonna be that one in the pipeline. If not, what I have been planning, what initially was the plan for the next 3-day 30K, was to write another vampire romance standalone that follows a character that is introduced in Verlac and Paloma's story, and it be like a stalker romance where essentially the main male protagonist, my vampire protagonist, he essentially hates the guts of a guy, and he essentially steals his fiance. I don't know how that one's gonna work because I haven't outlined it yet, and I'm filming this right now because I was soon gonna start doing the outlining process for that one. I was going to spend a good few weeks working on the outline for that one before I went into the next 3-day 30K challenge. I'm so excited, but yeah, who knows, maybe I might change my mind last minute and decide, no, you know what, Hesperus and Sidonia and like all those other characters, they can just wait. They can wait for a longer time. Like Winston, he can rest in his little cave, and so can Dio for some time. But at this point, I feel a burning sensation within me, especially with things that are happening out in the world that really inspire my story. I've decided that I think next 3-day 30K, I will be working on book 2. I will be working on outlining book 2. I think it will help me go into book 1 stronger. And yeah, so there's that. There is my messy writing update. So regarding what's next on the pipeline, as I'm filming this, I am almost a month out from turning 30, and it's a really exciting time. This year has been a very big year, not necessarily because I've started writing, but also it's been book event heavy. I acknowledge that this year was going to be a year that I was going to spend a lot of money on book events as an attendee, and so I told myself after Rare 2025 that I was going to get very serious about my savings. And so the plan I have in place includes unsubscribing to Fairy Loot YA. I'm definitely gonna miss the goodies that the box comes with. I told myself I was going to consider unsubscribing from the subscription after the Tarot set has been complete, and the Tarot set has been complete now. Essentially, I've noticed that whenever Fairy Loot launches the sequels, I'm not rushing to buy the sequels, and so I just thought, okay, I think it would make sense for this subscription box to get cancelled, and that adds an extra $100 to my budget each month that I could be putting to my author fund. I also neglected to mention that Illumicrate and Afterlight, they are reducing their skips within a year. Yeah, there's a high chance I'm gonna have to unsubscribe to them. I don't renew for them every month, so it's not like it's adding back to my budget per se. Like, majority of the time I am renewing for Fairy Loots and stuff, but it will have to be just like one little financial thing that I cannot risk getting auto debited for, or I would just have to phase out of it by like skipping multiple times and then it would just cancel because avoidance. And I'm finding other different ways to contribute to my author fund. I started micro investing using this app called Raise. I'm not sure if you guys have this app globally, but in Australia we have this app called Raise. And honestly, it's quite the handy app when it comes to rounding up spare change. So whenever, like, let's say I spend $9.99 on, like, here, a subscription to Amazon Prime, what it does is it takes that cent and then it puts it into this auto roundup jar. I mean, obviously I'm not gonna have like 1 cent roundups every time. Every single time a dollar is rounded up, like if I spend $15, what Raise will do is they will take $1 every single time a rounded up purchase is made and stuff. And what that has done is it's made me invest $153.88 so far just in roundups alone. So that has been very helpful, like me saving even though I'm spending. But there are other methods that I want to do in order to make sure that I save, because I'm really serious about this. I'm really serious about taking this path as an author. I want to make sure that going forward I get even more serious about it. I just knew that I had Babe and Rare coming up, but I'm hoping that going forward it will be easier for me to allocate money to my author fund. But yeah, I'm actually starting from square one when it comes to my author fund, and I'm trying not to freak out about it. There are moments where I am writing and I'm just like, oh man, I really wish that at this point I could afford to work with an editor. I have editors reaching out to my TikTok account and all sorts of different accounts, and I love that. I see you guys. I do. I see you guys, but at this point it would be so unfair on you guys if I had nothing to give you. Eventually we will get there. That being said, this feels very weird because I initially wasn't going to do this on my channel. This actually came about because I started to be asked, so your 30th birthday is coming up, G. What do you want for your 30th birthday? And every year when it comes to people asking me what I want for my birthday, I would always say, I want books. Like, Camilo would ask me, what do you want for your birthday? I'd say books. Every single time, without hesitation. Or gift cards to buy books. Or, like, purchase from my Amazon wishlist. That is what I would usually give people. Now, as you can see, I have enough books. And don't get me wrong, every gift I would definitely appreciate. But if someone was to ask me what I truly wanted for my birthday, it would be support. It would be support to help me through the next stage of my journey. Now, I initially only had the plan to share this around to anybody who's attending my 30th birthday. Camilo, at the moment, oh, he's such a wonderful husband. He is planning a surprise 30th birthday for me. I initially was like, oh, well, maybe I want to do a 30th birthday. Like, I gave him an idea for something, and he's like, you know what? Leave it to me. This is going to be a surprise. I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm like, oh man. And all the people who are invited to my 30th birthday know of my author journey. And so what I had planned to do as an answer to their question is give an author fund to donate to. So I started a GoFundMe where I set a goal for an author fund, and then the idea came, well, you know what? Here on my channel, in fact, I think a majority of anybody who knows that I write are watching me here from this platform and watching me from my other platforms. I decided, okay, well, like, I feel weird. I feel weird about it because, like, honestly, the last thing I want to do is panhandle, but if there's anything that I have learned through my self-concept work, it is also that I need to remember that I am worthy enough. I am worthy enough of achieving great things, and I am worthy enough of receiving. So I'm putting this out there. I have started a GoFundMe for my author fund, at least to get started. So this author fund donation page is essentially designed to help me with costs like ISBN costs, print costs, production costs, editorial costs, that's a big one. Guidance, I guess, editorial guidance, potential marketing costs, and of course I am manifesting that maybe it will go as far as to help me with event costs. Oh my goodness, the dream it would be to at least get to start to do events and stuff, but obviously I need to publish first. But I'm speaking it into existence right now. I would love to do events, and I can see myself doing events. I can see myself doing the whole shebang. I can see myself creating special editions. That's the goal, right? That is the goal. But we gotta start somewhere. Or at least, sorry, I've gotta start somewhere. The last thing I want is for anybody to feel like they have an obligation to give to me. If you could see yourself giving me a birthday gift, then I welcome it. If you've been supportive of me through my social media journey, if you have anything to give, a $5 donation will mean so much to me. Like, maybe even the cost of a book from an Amazon wish list, or like whatever you feel in your heart that you could give. If you are going through a situation where you are living paycheck to paycheck and if you have nothing to offer, I ask you sincerely, do not worry. What would mean a lot to me is if you shared my videos, if you shared my content, if you shared the donation link, any of that, all of that means so much to me, right? I am not asking anybody to give more than they can, and I am not asking everyone to give. And of course, there are other causes out there. There are so many more people in this world that need the money more than me, right? So the last thing I want is for people to feel the need to give to me in this cause if they feel like the money could be used otherwise. I'm putting this out there because I do believe in my vision behind my book series. I do believe in this story so much, and I do believe in myself enough to like face my fear. I'm a little bit nervous right now talking about this. The last thing I want is for this to come off as a pity talk. I want to make sure that anybody who gives to me does not feel pressured to give to me, does not feel pressure in any way to support me. They are doing it because they truly want to. It's not a need, it's a want. That's what I desire the most out of anything. I want to do this with a pure conscience. All the donated proceeds that come my way, I plan to document here on this channel. In terms of like how I would use these funds, I want to be very transparent to anybody who has donated to me where the money is going. And in addition, as I've mentioned, I will continue to look into other ways of building upon this fund. Now, yes, sorry, the goal might seem a little intimidating to some who might look at it. I think that maybe some self-publishers out there will understand where I'm coming from with the high goal I've set. I'm not expecting to reach this goal. I've just decided to set this particular goal because I know that with a book of my word count, or books of my word count, and with other costs like production costs, maybe event costs or special edition costs in the future as well, if I can squeeze that into the budget, with how many kinds of edits I might need to do. Like, I was considering a line edit, but who knows, maybe I might need to go developmental edit. Like, that's two different types of edits. I'm just considering those possibilities as I've decided to put a number to it. I'm not sure that within your region it will show your currency, but I've put it into Australian dollars to make sense for the Australian costs and everything. Oh boy, editing me is watching this, and yeah, the more and more I think about my first book, the more I realize that I do first and foremost need a developmental structural edit, because something I don't mention in the video is that I have got 2 prologues, I have interludes, I have all of these different dream sequences. I don't know where to structure them, but I know that they're very important in the story, as well as some certain events. And so I know that a line edit would benefit me, but I think based on the complexity of the story, it's probably also going to need a developmental edit, which, you know, those are 2 separate edits. I don't actually know if I'm going to be working with a US editor. I'm actually considering that because I do write my books in US English. The reason why I do is for broader appeal, and because I actually started off, fun fact, in my homeschooling days, I did American education. So I learned American English, but then when I moved into Australian high school, I learned how to write in anglicized English. I am kind of like bilingual, but in that way. Yeah, so that's a fun fact. So in case I want to go with an American editor, then maybe, yeah, I don't even know how that's relevant. But the point is, with all these costs, I am thinking about these things, and I am thinking about ways of reducing personal spendage. At this time, it's just been tighter because we've had Babe and Rare earlier this year. I've had travel costs with Rare as well, and just like other things. Camilo has purchased a car. I am not expecting anybody to overextend themselves, but if there's anything that I would love as a gift for my birthday, it would be support. It would be support in any way possible, whether it's simply sharing my content, following me on these platforms, following my journey, or if it is a financial donation. All of it means so much to me. And in case you wanted to know, and I haven't mentioned it yet, my birthday is on October 29th. I'm thinking of keeping this author fund up in case maybe someone's wanting to give a Christmas gift. I don't know. I just figured that, like, initially I was actually planning to open it up like 2 months before October, but essentially I was a little bit of a chicken. So that is a big reason why I'm like, okay. But I will be probably keeping it open for some time, so if no one has anything to donate coordinate at the moment. Maybe they can do it over time, and I will probably be mentioning it as part of my intro going forward, just to kind of put the word out there. But once again, no obligation, no pressure. Something that I do actually want to mention in terms of next steps, even though I have spent like a lot of time talking about like my next project and my funding, is that something I really want to do personally is I really want to build Camilo up as well. If you guys don't happen to know, my husband of 5.5 years, what drew us together as a partnership is our love for creativity, our love for creative expression. Not everyone happens to know, and I want to say this right now, he is a webtoon artist, he is an illustrator. Big reason why I didn't mention cover costs is because I want to see if I can work with Camilo going forward in terms of his artistry. I would like to collaborate with him. Like, first and foremost, I'm doing my author career for myself, but I also want to build him up while I'm building myself up as well. Obviously, he's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Like, I'm not saying that I'm the only one that's doing the work. Obviously I have a platform. I have been doing YouTube for some time. Milo has been posting on his webtoon, and he's looking at posting more content on other social media. We've also looked at other collaboration opportunities that I'm excited to discuss eventually, but we do need to actually do some work on the background in order to discuss that. Let's just say that I want to get him a bit more front-facing, and he also wants to be a bit more front-facing as well, so stay tuned for that. But overall, something I really want to do going forward after a year of reflection, and after he has been my biggest support, my biggest cheerleader, but also my toughest critique partner, because he needs to be. He really does need to be. And thankfully, he's passionate about fantasy as well. He's passionate about world building, and he is also writing a fantasy story on webtoon. I will leave all of his links down in the description below. Honestly, best man I know. I love him so much. I really want to see him succeed too. I have seen him go through so much over these last 5.5 years, and even like over the years that we've been friends. Like, I think overall I've known Camilo for around 7 or 8 years, and I want to support him in every way that I possibly can. He has supported me in every way that he possibly can. He doesn't judge me for all the books that I bring home, even though he's such a minimalist and I'm such a maximalist. Oh my goodness. I mean, even another green flag, he is planning a 30th birthday for me. He's my best friend. He supports me unconditionally. Like, I didn't tell him that I was going to mention this in my video today. This is something that I personally want to do for him as well, as a big thank you, because I've seen him go through a lot. Was it last year, beginning of last year, he was working as a digital artist and he got made redundant, and like now he has a job, he's sustained and everything. He's working in a printing company, but like I want to see him rise up as an artist and be creatively fulfilled in more professional opportunities. And believing is half the battle. I've seen him knocked down many times. I was knocked down many times as well, but I've seen him knocked down many times, and I also want to support him as well. I want to do this as well to help launch his career in the spotlight as well. I mean, he's been doing things in the spotlight, but I really want to, over this next year, really highlight his work even more. I have commissioned a few pieces. I've already commissioned this piece that has appeared. This is Hesperus and Sidonia, and I love them so much, especially in this illustration, and I feel like I've got even more clear pictures as, you know, time goes on. And so yeah, honestly, I reckon we're a dream team. I personally, as an author, would not be here where I am now if it weren't for him. If he was not my cheerleader, there were some things about my self-development journey that he may have not implemented beforehand. It wasn't like he had to pick me up. I had to pick myself up, but there are moments where I do slip and he helps me up. That's a really bad way of explaining it. What I was meaning to say was I had to make the step and realize that I needed to change my life for the better. He's always been there to support me. He's always been there to uplift me. But I needed to step out of the boat myself. I needed to go out there and do things myself. And whenever I feel like going back into that safe zone, that very comforting zone of like survival, being like, oh no, like you don't belong here anyway, just like go into the corner like over there and just enjoy life without doing anything hard, right? There are moments where I'm able to pick myself out of it, and there are moments where he helps me. And to top it all off, he helps me cover plot holes as well, and he gives me some really good ideas. And sometimes, of course, we argue about my plot points. Sometimes he feels like he's got the better idea of my story. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? He had made me realize that my first draft was going nowhere, and I was angry, but then I had realized, oh, no, he's right. He gives me the tough love when I need it. And that's important. Like, I have a very good feedback partner. He's not telling me what I want to hear all the time. And that's really good. And that is how I know that his heart is in a genuine place when it comes to my development. And I want you guys to know that my heart is in the place where I want to see Camilo succeed as well. And so going forward, as an author, I want to continue to work with him and to support him. I have asked him if he wants to collaborate on a book with me. He said no. I don't think that he wants to write. No, I should have said that. He doesn't want to co-author a book with me. He would probably want to put illustrations in the middle of a book, but he would not want to co-author a book only because like he just feels like webtoons are where he is at, and I feel like writing is where I'm at. But anyway, that was a long update. To anyone who stayed, you are a real one. I know I mentioned this in my last writing vlog, but oh my goodness, to anyone who supports me, thank you. To anybody who watches these videos, thank you. Thank you so much. There's so much you have not seen yet, but I hope and I pray, no, I will. I will. I'm manifesting it. No, I've manifested it. I will. I'm an author. I've embodied the person that is going to step out of the comfort zone to share more. I'm so excited, and I cannot wait for the next write-a-thon. I can't wait to look for more opportunities to make content and to share more with you guys. In the meantime, of course, there will be shorts that are inspired by my writing journey and everything, and hopefully more mentions of the projects as the videos go along. Oh my goodness, I'm just so happy that I have finally shared what I'm doing with my main series here. I hope that I've explained it properly. I mean, editing G will figure that out. Anyway, my my memory card is just about to run out. I think I've only got a minute left. So I guess it's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the purple heart emoji because I love these purple nails, and I love purple. I really do. And if you'd like to continue to support me, you can follow me on my social medias. I'm at Author Gianna Jones on TikTok and Instagram if you want to follow me there for some more bookish content. And then there's my GoFundMe as well if you'd like to donate to my GoFundMe. That would be much appreciated. Oh my goodness. Oh, I forgot to mention very quickly, before my camera memory card runs out. Anybody who donates to my GoFundMe, I personally, to start off with, right, I will find and see if there are any other incentives that I can look towards, but I personally want to credit every single person who contributes to my GoFundMe. And so, by doing that, I would like to add you guys to the acknowledgements of my book. I totally forgot to mention that. That's something that I'm looking towards at the moment, and I wouldn't just say one book, I'd say any book that the Author Fund touches, for sure. That is something that I want to do. So any book that the Author Fund that I receive touches, I am going to make sure that anybody who donated to that fund is going to be included in the acknowledgements of the published product. Happy birthday, if it is your birthday as well. If anybody else is turning 30, happy 30th to you as well. I love you all, I really do. Thank you so much for all your support throughout this journey, and I cannot wait to see things get better. I cannot wait for that light to shine brighter at the end of the tunnel like it has for my girls. I will see you later. Peace.